The Miami Dolphins were supposed to play a football game at Lucas Oil Stadium, but brought the Circus to town instead, falling 16-10 to the Colts to drop to 2-4 on the season.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Cal Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan. Unfortunately, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami, unfortunately, on Substack, and the NFL Draft lead, fortunately, for the 33rd team. Appreciate you guys for checking out the show. The Dolphins falling 16-10 to the Indianapolis Colts at Lucas Oil Stadium after starting with a 10-0 lead out of the bye. We're going to get into it here today on the show. Appreciate all of our everydayers because it is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it is easy to get started. Maybe we could get some general football IQ 101 courses up over at Hillsdale, since this Dolphins team apparently just does not have any sense of basic football awareness in all phases. Coaching, players, execution. You could get to the construction of the team, but I think the most infuriating thing about a game like the one that you just watched, if you're a Dolphins fan, is the Dolphins beat themselves today. The Dolphins were up 10-0 with less than a minute in the first half and promptly gave up points at the end of the half to take away an advantage to double dip and turn the ball over twice on unforced errors. They traveled multiple times into Colts scoring territory and walked away with absolutely no points at all. Special teams missed another field goal that would have been a critical piece of the puzzle for what a win could have looked like. So another special teams miscue. Braxton Berrios brings out a kick and looks to have gotten injured. So you don't want anybody to get injured, of course. But just cataclysmic comedy of error after comedy of error after comedy after error after comedy of error. Fullback dive. Remember, you want to run the clocks back, it's week 7, about 6 weeks, and we thought fullback dive was a nice development. I'm begging Mike McDaniel, don't call any more fullback dives this season, please. And I know, of somebody in a football building would hear that and they chuckle and they say, well, you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't. But Jalen Wright came into this game and gave you multiple chunk explosive plays after you refused to use them at all in the first half of the football game. And you get a 3rd and 1 situation or a 4th and 1 situation and you fullback dive. You're in the high red zone on 1st and 10 on the same drive that Jalen Wright just came in with fresh legs as the 215-pound back and ripped off a number of chunk runs, and you run fullback dive and you fumble and turn the ball over. Miami, you kind of liked what they did early, getting Jonnu Smith involved. I didn't really like the personnel evaluation to put Devon Achane back out there as the primary snap taker and primary ball carrier for you from a ball carrier's perspective, especially because they tried to continue to smash him between the tackles. Now, the run game got going. You had 115 yards rushing in the first half. You found a way to get the tight end involved, some easy middle of the field over the ball completions. Don't love not getting Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle involved, but to add it to the list of just the things that you look back on and say, wow, you pushed just about every wrong button that you possibly could. You come out after half and you're moving the ball with a couple of chunk runs. And what do? You get to 3rd and 3. Surely you have an opportunity to call a balanced play, right? You throw a fade on 3rd and 3 down the sideline to Tyreek Hill. You have a 2nd and 2 or a 3rd and 2. In the 2-minute offense situation at the end of the game, trying to go down, you need a touchdown. You throw a slant inbounds against a hard, flat corner who gets tackled and cut off from getting out of bounds. You might as well just clock the ball and save yourself the extra time. And then you get to 4th and 2 and you throw a never-in-history ball. One thing I know about the game of football, you throw the ball 10 yards out of bounds, It's never been caught in the history of football. So why did we throw one 10 yards out of bounds on 4th and 2 with the game on the line? A never in history ball on 4th and 2. 4th and game. Baffling. Baffling incompetence in an overwhelming amount of ways would be how you would describe what just unfolded. You played a quarterback that went 10 of 24 for 129 yards, tried to give you the ball on a number of occasions. Jordan Poyer can't quite come up with a pick. You do have a missed exchange for a fumble in scoring territory. You credit the defense there. I continue to feel bad for this defense. Colts were 4 of 13 on 3rd down, 284 yards. I think this is like yet another. Have the Dolphins given up 300 yards of offense more than once all season in 6 games? You try to play the field position game. You have a nice punt from Jake Bailey on his first punt to pin him back deep. I don't think he had another good punt the rest of the game. He punted from midfield and didn't even put it inside the 20. I thought the broadcast kind of missed the point of a couple of things. Like they were critical of Miami in a number of ways that I actually thought were understandable, right? The false start on the punt, you got a new long snapper, right? The cadence a little different. The timing's not quite there. The snap was high on the field goal. It doesn't excuse the missed kick, which sure would have came in handy. But man, just every ounce of it takes every ounce of your being to just not totally lose your mind watching a game like this, which you had won. You were running the ball at will. And you know what's crazy? They continued when they wanted to on early downs to run the ball at will into the second half. And then we get cute. And then we call a fade. And then we run a fullback dive. And then your quarterback, who you prep for, gets hurt because heaven forbid the Dolphins start and finish the game with a backup with the same quarterback that they started the game with. And you go back to 2022, and it was Teddy and Skyler. And then it was Teddy and Skyler. And then it was Skyler and Teddy. And then it was Tua's back in. And then Skyler comes back in. And it just Seattle this year, Skyler to Boyle. And then Huntley comes in. And then you were down to Huntley to Boyle again today. The merry-go-round spins round and round. Man, we're going to get in more into it here today on Locked On Dolphins postgame. Dolphins losing 16-10 to the Colts that dropped 2-4 on the season. Buckle up. This is not going to be a lot of fun. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is sponsored by BetterHelp. What's something that scares you? Halloween can let us have a lot of fun with what scares us, but what about those fears that don't involve zombies and ghosts? Therapy can be a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them, because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing our fears in the first place and holding ourselves back. If you're thinking of starting therapy, you can give BetterHelp a try. It's designed to be entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you could switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. And I don't know about you, but I certainly will not be spending any time consuming any of the Dolphins curated content off of this loss to the Colts. So how can you spend your time a little bit more wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, the great American story, land of hope, the rise and fall of the Roman Republic, and much more. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Right now, go to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost. It's easy to get started. It's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. Hillsdale.edu/lockedon. In the second half, Miami, from a possession standpoint, 4 plays, 15 yards, punt. They start on the 30. They have a 12-yard run on first and 10. Achane up the middle for 3. Achane right tackle for 5. 3rd and 2, 50-yard line, opening possession. You throw the fade down the field to Tyreek Hill. I don't know. You needed 2 yards. Can you get to 1st and 10 in plus territory and then take your shot? Can you run for 8 yards on first down like you did a bunch of times in this football game and call it on 3rd and 2? Or on 2nd and 2 instead of 3rd down and put yourself in a position where you get a punt? Colts go 3 plays, 5 yards, give you the ball back. You start on the 38-yard line. You run for 7 yards and fumble the football. So you run to the 45. So now you're at the plus or the minus 45 twice in 2 possessions. You have a punt and a turnover. You go 3 plays, minus 1 yard. Don't get anything going. Tyler Huntley takes a stack. Tyler Huntley gets hurt. Flushing out of the pocket, running directly into the pathway of pass rushers on the edge. Punt. Tie game. Dolphins force a fumble that's not a fumble inside the Colts red zone. They punt. You start at Braxton Berrios returns the punt 9 yards to the Miami 45 to start the drive. So now you're on minus 45 or better in 3 out of 4 possessions in the second half. This drive goes 6 plays, 41 yards. Jalen Wright, right tackle for 9. Jalen Wright up the middle for 19. Jalen Wright, right guard for 2. Jalen Wright, left end, pushed out of bounds, 25. Tim Boyle on 3rd and 8. Gets you 12 yards to Jonnu Smith, spot route over top of the ball. 1st and 10. Alec Ingold, left guard, minus 2 yards, fumbles, recovered by Colts. A fullback dive on 1st and 10 at the 13. Why? You ran the ball for almost 200 yards in this game. In what possible reason did you need to give Alec Ingold a touch here? When Wright goes 9 and 19 on his first 2 carries, and you didn't play him at all in the first half of the football game, for Lord knows what reason. We spent all bye week and all off the heels of the Patriots game. Hard yards. You got to get hard yards. You got to embrace hard yards. Don't make the yards harder for yourself. Put the physical runners in here who want to go get hard yards. And I get Alec Ingold's a hard-nosed player. 1st and 10 at the 13 is not the time to reward a hard-nosed role player for a hard day's work of blocking guys as a lead blocker. On what planet do you call a fullback dive with the way that this possession started? 1st and 10 at the 13. I'll take any perimeter screen that you've shown a billion times thus far this season. I'll take Devon Achane up the gut before I take a fullback dive on 1st and 10. Baffling. The Colts punt off that, by the way. So now you're in Colts territory technically twice in the second half. You have no points. Okay, you get the ball to your own 29. You go minus 2 yards. You punt. And the Colts go 12 plays, 69 yards. You force a field goal. Now you're losing by 3 points. Berrios runs out to the 23 from 3 yards inside his own end zone, gets hurt on the play. Is his season over? We'll find out. And you drive all the way down to the Colts 36. 4th and 1. Oh, I should say, let's do the 3rd and 1 first because you called the fullback dive again. And you got no yards. And then Jason Sanders from 54 misses. On the same drive that you, by the way, went 3rd and 1 fullback dive, Jonnu Smith had a drive starter for you. Raheem Mostert went up the middle for 14 yards. Jaylen Waddle got 11 with a sit route over top of the ball. I mean, the Dolphins had chunk runs off tackle, up the middle, towards the edges. So to put yourself into the box and call these fullback dives, these two fullback dives are cataclysmic calls. And then Jason Sanders to tie with 5 minutes left, and it's no good. And then, of course, you got to get into scoring position again, right? So now you've had 3 possessions in the second half that are in scoring territory. You didn't score any points on any of them. The 2-minute offense situation, which peaks at 2nd and 1 with 29 seconds left from the 32-yard line, and you complete a pass for -1 yard. I think that's probably the most infuriating thing of the 2-minute offense drive. You took over at your own 30 with 151 left, 8 yards, 10 yards, incomplete, 7 yards, 4 yards, 9 yards, -1 yard. You need a chunk. And you waited until 4th and 2 with 11 seconds left from the 33 to try to get the chunk, throwing a back shoulder ball to Malik Washington out of bounds by 10 yards. It's bad football. This was a game you should have won. And quite frankly, if you didn't play with your food in the first half, you probably should have won this game by multiple scores with what the Colts did on offense and how incapable Anthony Richardson looked on offense. You had more first downs. You had more third down conversions, better third down percentage. You had more yards of offense. You averaged more yards per play. You, with your second and third string, I guess technically your third and fourth string quarterbacks, had a significantly better completion percentage, had more passing yards. You ran for more yards. You averaged a half yard more per carry. But you were penalized, including another 30-plus yard run off the board with, I thought, what was a ticky-tack holding penalty. I'll tell you, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy to have an offensive offsides. Go look at the replay. An offensive face mask called, and there was a play late in that game in the fourth quarter where the Colts had a guy whose hand was on the chest of a Dolphins defender, and his 2 fingers were up over top of the face mask, which was the same thing they called Liam Eichenberg for. It doesn't excuse all the other stuff. But some of the penalties were brutal. But it's also attention to detail. And I don't want to use the officiating to absolve anybody that's affiliated with this football team for what was a disastrous clown car joke of a performance after the first 29 minutes of the football game, offensively and special teams. I continue to feel bad for this defense, for the performance that Calais Campbell's out there putting on, for the performance that Jalen Ramsey is putting on out there, for the performance that Jordan Brooks is putting on out there, for the performance that Zach Sealer's putting on out there. There's a lot of quality play that you're getting on the defensive side of the ball, and it's being wasted by incompetent calls, incompetent performance, lack of attention to detail, and best of all, no accountability for any of it. It's bad. So I'll ask again this week where the accountability is going to come from. But we know there's not going to be any, because the focus is just going to be on Tua is going to practice this week, and that'll make everything better now that we're 2-4. Don't look now in 2 weeks. You got to play that team from Western New York who spanks you every time you play them. So you might as well put 2-5 in the record column and see what you can do against the Cardinals next week. Talk a little bit more about this defense next year on Locked On Dolphins. Stick with us. NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return over on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page as where you place your bets. It's been kind of a touch-and-go situation for the Dolphins, trying to get the Cardinals game on the board for FanDuel, but because of the unknown elements of Tua and his availability, can't find next week's game on there just yet. But what you can find is you've got some really compelling lines with the Jets at Steelers. Jets -2.5. I might jump on Steelers +2.5. We'll see. I mean, they're going to have the 2 quarterback package thing going on. Is the Jets, is the good juju from the fired head coach and trading for Devontae Adams? I don't know. I might take all my frustrations out on the Jets. They might make me pay for it, though. I'd probably jump on Baltimore -3.5 for tomorrow night as well as a part of the Monday Night Football doubleheader. So you can get on all of the action for yourself over at FanDuel. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. 2 of 15 on fourth down this season, by the way. Tyreek Hill Jaylen Waddle finished this game. 1 catch for 8 yards for Tyreek. That catch came on the 2-minute offense drive. Tyreek did his best to go backwards 3 yards before he got north and south and got what he could. Jaylen Waddle 1 for 11. Those two guys combined for 4 targets. And look, I get it. You ran the ball 40 times. You only attempted 26 passes. Opportunities are going to be limited to go around. And if that's what you're going to get, great. Like, okay, I can live with that amongst what the game script was supposed to be. But when Alec Ingold has as many touches in a football game as Tyreek Hill does, you have a problem. Tyreek Hill had an end around for 5 yards. When Alec Ingold touches the football twice as much as your $28 million a year wide receiver, you fundamentally have a problem. And the problem is it's not just the quarterback. Now, the quarterback situation's been a clown car all season long. Let's be honest. And I will be honest, Tim Boyle might be your best option of all your backup quarterbacks at this stage. Because I don't know what's happened to Tyler Huntley, but the Dolphins tried to take advantage of the bye week and put some more stuff in and get Tyler more comfortable. What I saw was Tyler averaging over 3 seconds to throw the football in this offense and fading into pass rushers left and right. Spoiler alert, fundamentally, that's not how it's supposed to work. We had big pockets to step up into. We didn't step up into pockets. We had one pass rusher generally in our vicinity, and maybe he's outside leverage on us. And what do? Well, let's give ground and try and get backwards and get outside of him. We could definitely throw the ball effectively when we're running backwards. By the way, Jalen Wright, as good as he ran against the Patriots, and as good as he ran, he had 27 yards. Was it 27 yards? 28 yards in his first 2 touches, 5 for 33. He had the longest run of the game. Goes back to what Bill Belichick said earlier this offseason. The most important evaluations that you have to get right to be a successful football program are the guys inside your building. They're not getting the guys inside their building right. And they got better options for some of the stuff that they're trying to do. Another day in paradise. So the Dolphins defense, I do want to give them their flowers. I know we mentioned this already. They came into this game 5th in the league in yards. They were 5th in the league in yards per possession. They were better than their season average from a rushing perspective. And Richardson's really the one that tagged you. He went 14 for 56, including a 22-yard run. But Trey Sermon ran hard down the stretch and killed you with a couple of runs, and the tackling got soft in the fourth quarter. But by and large, this is the 5th time in 6 games the Dolphins haven't even given up 300 yards of offense. This is the 5th time in 6 games the Dolphins have yet to give up 200 yards passing in a game. But it's also the 6th consecutive game this season in which the Dolphins have given up at least 100 yards rushing. So if you're looking for where it gets better, Yolagba didn't play. You had Muhammad Kamara active. Tyus Bowser, who's been here for 3 weeks, was a primary player for you on the edge. You're going to have to keep blitzing guys until you get a little bit more healthy on the edge. Not that I'm super sure that it matters at this stage. This season's going to play itself out, and we'll see what happens. Oh, and excuse me, Alec Ingold actually did have a catch. So Alec Ingold did have as many touches in this football game as Tyreek Hill did. Tyreek Hill finished with 13 yards. Alec had -1 yard rushing and Still had almost twice as many because he had 25 yards on a catch out of the backfield. You did not sack Anthony Richardson. You had several chances to get him down and get to even bigger plays. Jalen Ramsey can't bring him down. Zach Sealer can't bring him down. Missed opportunities. You as a defense, you just have no margin for error at all. Because heaven forbid you score more than 15 points. 10, 3, 12, 15, 10. And 10 in the first 29 minutes with 3 possessions in scoring territory in the second half. And you still scored 10. And that's how you lose a football game, 16-10. When you totally dictated terms in the first half of the game, looked like you had an opportunity to get yourself back to 500. We're going to break down the film in the days ahead, and we will talk about what we find here on Locked On Dolphins and get ready for the Cardinals and see how the Tua Tagovailoa storyline plays out and hear what Mike McDaniel has to say after another thrilling Dolphins performance. The Dolphins at 2-4 on the season now. Another sobering reminder of just where this team is at right now. Cannot get out of their own way in multiple phases of the team. And you do worry about if it trends this way, what might be waiting on the horizon before we get, mercifully at this stage, to Week 18. I'm Kyle Krabs. You can keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. Appreciate you guys checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day as much as you can. Don't let the Dolphins ruin it too much. And we will be back again on Tuesday for another episode of Locked On Dolphins. We'll see you then.